Can you see me
Today
now?
we are facing some of the greatest
Good.
challenges of our lives, from our health to political unrest, the environment, financial uncertainty, and the nation's racial divide. Welcome to Bill Myers Inspires. My idea for this show was to invite guests and get the conversation started, to take a deep dive into the issues that impact our world with an eye to exploring solutions. And we encourage our listeners to look within themselves to take decisive action to make a positive difference. Welcome to Bill Myers Inspires. I'm your host, Bill Myers, and today we are actually doing a continuation of what we started last week, which was the show was entitled Blacks in the Military, What Are We Defending? And my guest last week was Clifford Ratliff. During the end of the show, a gentleman logged on and left a pretty substantial comment, which I did read right at the end of the show. And then after that, I received several text messages and noticed several Facebook comments that were relative to last week's show. And then I realized that in order to do any justice to the topic, that I needed to continue with that show this week. And the gentleman who left the post that I read at the end of last week's show, I spoke to afterwards, and he is actually my guest today. And I want to backtrack just a little bit, and so that we can sort of catch up and get up to speed as to what we were talking about last week. Again, last week's show was entitled Blacks in the Military, What Are We Defending? And the show was with my good friend Clifford Ratliff. Now, Clifford had a statement that this was all centered around, which was he didn't believe that blacks should spill an ounce of blood or serve in combat for this country at this time because of the issue of the right to vote being tampered with and all that. So he felt very strongly about that, and that's what brought this conversation into being. So again, I want to dive a little bit deeper, because I really feel like if I would walk away from that topic, I would not have done it the proper justice. So again, my guest today is a gentleman who is a retired career military veteran, Mr. James Morris, and he is with us today. And James Morris is a graduate of the National University with a bachelor's degree in business administration. He joined the United States Marine Corps in 1979 as an enlisted Marine and served 22 years of honorable service, retiring as a Chief Warrant Officer. He served 11 years after that with the federal government, advocating for disabled veterans and their families in the Indianapolis metropolitan area. While stationed in Southern California, he developed an interest in selling residential real estate and was licensed to do so in June 1996. Upon retirement from the federal government, he obtained his real estate broker license, and he is currently employed as an independent contracted real estate broker associate with Carpenter Realtors in Avon, Indiana. So please help me welcome my special guest today, Mr. James Morris. Welcome to the show, James.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, Bill.
Yeah. So I was very struck by your comment that you left. Like I said, most of the time when I look into our chat window and I see a comment from someone, it'll be sort of a one-off, or I'm listening to the show, somebody just letting me know they're listening. But you had quite a bit that you left in there, and I felt compelled to read it because I know that's a very serious and sensitive subject for those people who have served bravely in the United States military, for folks to have a feeling that they don't believe the service is that the nation is worthy of the service, particularly coming from someone who's, and this is of course, a short form, but that notion that the nation is not perhaps worthy of my service or my blood or my life to be on the line, sort of thing. Those are very, very strong thoughts. And again, as an individual who's never served in the military, I don't feel qualified to speak against that. There's a reason I didn't sign up for the military, which is, but I do think it's pertinent to hear you out. So let's go back to the conversation last week and let's look at what some of the observations were that Clifford said that may have prompted you. Maybe it was the title of the show, but I know you were listening to the show. So what was it that sort of caught your attention and compelled you to share your thoughts on this matter?
Well, I tell you, Bill, when I first, heard that, got a wind that this show was taking place, what are we fighting for? It really interests me. I'm like, what are we fighting for? And I had been thinking, I had thought about this for a while. do have a younger child and so forth. And I thought to the fact that I would not encourage any of my children to join the military today. And when I heard this, I'm thinking to myself, when you first join up, you raise your right hand and you take a solemn oath, to defend the Constitution of the United States. Okay. So you do that, and then you look at the action of our political leaders today. I mean, you can go back to January 2009. I think we know who was in office at that time frame. And you look at the prejudice and the racism that has occurred, and then you can move forward to things that are occurring today, and on to the fact that at one point in time, the statement was made that, all military members are suckers and losers. You got a congressman who was a POW, and it was stated that he's not a hero, and to me, and I think to most military people, individuals that are POWs are considered heroes, And you have your gold star parent, your gold star recipients are your parents and your, parents of ones that service members have, died in combat, And to go as far and disrespect those people, I mean, to me, it was totally wrong. Totally wrong.
Wow.
And, totally
so
wrong.
I want to back up because you just did a very interesting sort of ballet move from 2019 to the current, but and I don't say that disrespectfully. I was tracking you well enough, but I want to dial this back a little bit because the episode of what you spoke of in 2009 was historic, and for all accounts, I'm sure for you and many and myself and many people in the nation and the world, the fulfillment of ever seeing a Black man elected president, which I'm sure many of us had resigned ourselves to. Maybe we'll never see that, but we did. And so that was a major historically significant thing that occurred with President Barack Obama being the first a Black president in the United States of America. And again, that didn't just resonate in America. That was not just a Black pride moment. He was elected by white people in America. Okay, let's be very, very clear. And so we all celebrated as a nation something very unique. And I think it represented a certain, a sign of some level of a progress, obviously, an achievement, a maturity of the nation, perhaps. But then you said it was during that something changed. And that's what I want to do, is sort of take this one step at a time. So what in the world do you think happened in 2009?
I feel that what happened is that, for the first time, at least in my lifetime, that I, could see, we had a division, in America. And the division started among our political leaders, okay? And I'm sitting here thinking that, hey, I served this country for 20 plus years as a military serviceman, and I got our political leaders who have showing so much disrespect. It's not leadership that they're showing. To me, in a way, you can even call it, childish. Some of it childish as well.
Hmm.
But in order, when you see that taking place, it's like, okay, I've done my time. Would I want to put a child of mine in harm's way? Because anytime you place your name on that dotted line and join the military, you don't have to die in combat. You can die in and around a combat zone or, or wherever. It doesn't necessarily have to be combat. But when you put your name on that dotted line, you are subject to being placed in harm's way. Okay.
Hmm.
So, will I want to send a child of mine into harm's way, knowing what could happen, meaning that they could lose their life?
Hmm.
And you have leaders that are acting in such a manner, and that they're showing so much division. And like I said, when you raise that hand, you stating that you agreeing to defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Who are our enemies? I mean, is it those on the left or is it those on the right? I mean, who are the enemies? That's
Hmm.
the question we have to ask ourselves. With so much division being shown, in America, who are the enemies?
Yeah, that's what struck me.
Yeah.
Last week when I was talking to Clifford, and he mentioned the thing about defending the rights to pursuit of freedom and the rights pursuit of happiness and all that said. And I said, and I just simply said, freedom for who? And again, it brings us back to that same place, and that
Mhm.
also underscores the idea of the division of which you speak, because who are we advocating the same things? I mean, both, whether it be black, white, Republican, Democrat. When we say things like that, who are we really talking about? Who are the American citizens of which you speak? And it makes it very unclear, because you have these agendas that are I mean, I assume intentionally divisive. Again, I thought we as a nation elected Barack Obama, and we find out, that may have set in motion a series of actions and pushback, if you will, or because it seemed like that was definitely the catalyst of the coming attractions, right? I mean, it's like,
Right.
that was the reason for the beginning. I mean, that was the Tea Party and all these sorts of things start to form, and and then
Hmm.
some of the actions in Congress, the difficulty to get things passed, and nobody wanted to let this man be the president. You know what I
Right.
mean? Or
Right.
or
Right.
just to fight him at every step of the way. So
Mhm.
um, so we go through, and we do have 8 years. So obviously Barack Obama was reelected.
Mhm.
So he was there was still enough juice, if you will, I think nationally, that got him reelected. So he did serve his full, not 2 full terms.
Right. Right.
So and then what? And see, this is where it becomes interesting to me, because again, we have a black commander in chief. Were we ever
Mhm.
prepared to really follow his lead,
Well,
or did that change? I mean, again, I'm just asking because I don't know.
Well, I think we were prepared to follow his lead. Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
But I think, like I say, him stepping into office, I mean, it really pulled the cover off of racism in politics, racism in America, and it just really started to show that ugly face. And then, like I say, and moving on forward, you can move on forward to what has occurred now and what's happening now. I mean, it appears to be getting worse. I mean, you got individuals that you have the voter suppression issues that are taking place now, and you just yeah, you just don't see an end to it as of right now. You really don't. It's like we're fighting. We're constantly fighting. You know, and I go back and I can fall back on what the great Muhammad Ali had said. Actually, he was ordered to go to war and drafted to fight into Vietnam, and his statement was, I'm not going there. What am I going over there to fight those people for? They haven't done anything to me. I got a battle here in America to complete.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a very strong statement, and you really didn't think much about that afterwards. But don't get it wrong, you know, I had a great career in the military. I loved the military. I loved the time that I spent there. I wouldn't trade it for nothing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I tell my children that, you know, I served for you, you know, and I served for my country, and you don't have to do that. You know, I'm here to support you. Go out, get a good education. My wife and I, we're going to support you to the fullest in all of your endeavors. If you don't want to do an education, get a good trade, do something in life, you know. But I would not encourage you to join the military. But if that's what you wanted to do, I'm not going to try to stop you from doing it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Wow. Wow. Well, you know, I am glad to have you here, and there's certainly more to explore here in this topic, and we're coming up on a break.
Yes.
So you are listening to Bill Myers Inspires, and today we're doing part 2 of Blacks and the Military. What are we defending? With my special guest today, Mr. James Morris. And so we will be back in just a moment. Thank you.
Today, we are facing some of the greatest challenges of our lives, from our health to political unrest, the environment, financial uncertainty, and the nation's racial divide. Tune in every Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Bill Myers Inspires, as he and his guests take a deep dive into the issues that impact our world with an eye to exploring solutions. Emmy Award-winning actor Bill Myers is an accomplished actor, jazz musician, filmmaker, writer, educator, and speaker. As a biracial man who's both black and white, Bill leverages his background, talents, and voice through creativity, compassion, and connection as activism for social justice to focus on uniting the divide and compelling change. Bill Myers Inspires encourages listeners to look within themselves and take decisive action to make a positive difference. For more information, visit his website, billmyersinspires.com, and sign in for the latest news and updates.
Are you a subject matter expert? Are you here to share your expertise with an audience waiting to hear from you in only the way you can deliver? Are you ready to have your voice amplified across the airwaves? Inspired Choices Network has a global radio platform streaming to millions of people across the world. Professionally produced and supported by an accomplished team every step of the way, you can broadcast from anywhere in the world, knowing your voice matters, and we ensure it is delivered with ease and efficiency. Eager to hear your message, the world awaits. Contact us today to become an Inspired Choices Network radio host. Email becomeahost@inspiredchoicesnetwork.com.
You're listening to Bill Myers Inspires here on the Inspired Choices Network. We're here every Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you for joining us. And now, let's get back to the conversation. We are back. You're listening to Bill Myers Inspires, and today we are discussing Blacks in the Military Part 2 with my guest today, Mr. James Morris. So, James, you just explained briefly before we went to break that, you know, you would not recommend the military to your children to enlist, but if they chose to do so, you would support their decision. But again, in that, there's a lot of things that have occurred probably since since Barack Obama. And again, I really want to see, once we move into the Trump years, I very rarely put president and his name in the same sentence, because I can't do it. I can't put my tongue and teeth around it. But, you know, the occupant of the White House, the occupancy changed, but so did the tone in the nation and some of the things there. So not only just in the interest of becoming more racist, as it were, but what other types of things, or what sort of actions did you were important to you, or were significant, that bring you to this place of not feeling the same comfort in the military service currently? I mean, this thing obviously had to progress. So you mentioned some of them. You mentioned like the disrespect shown to Senator McCain and that sort of thing, or the sort of, characterizations from. But anyway, I want to let you sort of fill in that blank, because again, as you being the military, retired career military, you would hear those things very differently than I would. So, and again, it's less about what I heard. I've done a whole season on many things I've heard, but I want to hear from you and how that feels as a service member.
Well, I tell you, like I say, when you put your name on that dotted line, I mean, you give up a lot, Most people don't realize what these veterans actually give up. You're talking about separation from family. You're talking about deployments and so forth. Some individuals go on 3, 4, 5 years of deployment. And the deployment is when you leave your current station within the state and you sent overseas, maybe for 6 months, maybe for 8 months, and you're coming back. So you got that occurring. So it's a stress on not only the service person, it's a lot of stress on the family as well, And I salute those military wives and so forth, and those military families that go through that, And then you go there and you're being placed in combat situations, and you're subject to injuries and, events that occur that you live with for a lifetime, And not only does that member bring that stuff back with him, he brings it back to his family as well. And the family has to deal with that. You're talking about, things like PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome, It's a serious condition. And you got a lot of service members that are actually committing suicide today. I mean? The numbers are horrendous, from events and so forth that have occurred while they're serving in the military. And I know this firsthand because I worked as a veteran service representative, helping veterans get their benefits and so forth. And they have some, nasty things, even with the Gulf War. You're talking about Gulf War syndrome, being exposed to burn pits and stuff like that, that messes with the lung, messes with the respiratory system. You got your veterans that came back from Vietnam that are, suffering from conditions related to Agent Orange. I mean, we go through a lot, and I know firsthand that what they go through.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Wow. So you were talking about that that treatment as it relates to the once the soldiers return back home. So and that was something that was, I was able to see, even as a youngster, because a lot of the older folk were Vietnam was the thing, and so these guys were coming back, and some of them were relatives and cousins and and had a hard time. I mean, in other words, let me just say it like this: they never were quite right. Something
right.
And I never thought that they were getting. I mean, just as, and again, that's from a kid. It was like, man, they need help, but they obviously weren't getting it, you know? And so then you see, other indicators that, and many complaints about the VA. And that's what bothered me, was how our sales pitch always seemed to be this big prideful, pressed and dressed and salute and all this beautiful pride stuff. And then it was like, but when you come back, it's that's not associated, that imagery is gone, and it turned into something else, and people that had issues and needed help, and it didn't seem like the country was taking nearly the care and concern on that follow-up or deprogramming or whatever you want to call that as as a person who has experienced PTSD, not from a war thing, but PTSD is serious business.
Oh, yeah.
And so I can empathize when you say those things, because it is debilitating and can really do a number on you. So it's critical that we get, that you get help.
Right.
And that sort of thing. So anyway, so yeah, I mean, so your experience of all of this, again, I want to get back to the different events that may have occurred during, again, our last occupant in the White House, and how that has accelerated in your mind, and how it manifests in different ways, that made it clearer to you that you would not recommend the military at this time. So what were those things? That's what I want to.
Well, I like when you look at, the possibilities and what the service member subject himself to, and and you look at the actions of the political leaders, that's the main thing for me. The main focus point for me is that, why should I be doing this? Why should I put myself or my child into harm's way when this is your action? This is what you're displaying to me, and you're supposed to be my leader. It just doesn't make sense. And I know some people, join the military. Some join for patriotic reasons. They join for various reasons. Some for patriotic reasons. Some for skills, just to learn skills. Some for pay. And let's be frankly, honest. Some, parents encourage their children to join the service because, they feel that they need discipline, and they feel that, joining the service is a way that they can get away from home and go in and learn some discipline about themselves. So there you have it. That's it.
Huh. Well, so all of those reasons to join the military, and then we talk about the leadership, but what are the changes in the leadership that make it very clear that it's not supported? I mean, what are the different ways that you saw that that the leaders misbehave, or the direction the leaders were going into? Any specifics there? Because again, there's a lot here. I mean, we can just gloss over it and say, well, it was just bad. Well, what does that mean? What are those specific pieces that really,
well, I think the
sort of snowball and make it worse,
Right. I think the specific things are, when you call someone that have laid down their life and gave the ultimate sacrifice, sucker and a loser, I mean, that's unacceptable. That's highly unacceptable. When you call a person that fights for this country a loser, and you don't consider me as a hero simply because of the fact that I was captured by the enemies, to me, that's unacceptable. And again, when you see people actually, you vow to support and defend the Constitution. January 6th wasn't about supporting the Constitution and defending the Constitution, and you got leaders that say, oh, that was a peaceful demonstration. We'll look you dead in your face and say, this is a peaceful demonstration. I voted you into office. I saw what happened. And you're going to tell me that this was a peaceful demonstration? Come on. You can't lead me and you're doing that. And this is the actions that you're showing. You can't lead me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, man, that's you brought it all the way to our current sort of place. And I want to ask you a single question, and I'm going to have to reserve it till after this next break, and maybe we can get to this break just a little bit sooner, because I'm anxious to ask you this question. But again, we are talking to my guest, James Morris, retired career military and honorable service in the military for what, 22
years, yes, almost 23 years.
Yeah. And so it is an honor to have you, sir, and thank you for your service. Let me get that out there. because when we have these conversations, I don't want it all to appear that I'm being disrespectful of it. I'm just asking some questions, but I do thank you for your service.
Well, thank you.
Because you have clearly exhibited some things that I can't say I would do for different reasons, you know. So,
Yeah.
but I have to respect that, and I do. And so, again, we're talking about Blacks and the military, and this is a continuation. This is part 2 of our conversation, which poses the question: what are we defending? With my guest again today, Mr. James Morris. We'll be back in just a moment.
Today, we are facing some of the greatest challenges of our lives, from our health to political unrest, the environment, financial uncertainty, and the nation's racial divide. Tune in every Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Bill Myers Inspires, as he and his guests take a deep dive into the issues that impact our world with an eye to exploring solutions. Emmy Award-winning actor Bill Myers is an accomplished actor, jazz musician, filmmaker, writer, educator, and speaker. As a biracial man who's both black and white, Bill leverages his background, talent, and voice through creativity, compassion, and connection as activism for social justice to focus on uniting the divide and compelling change. Bill Myers Inspires encourages listeners to look within themselves and take decisive action to make a positive difference. For more information, visit his website, billmyersinspires.com, and sign in for the latest news and updates.
How wonderful would it be to carry your favorite Inspired Choices Network host with you throughout your day? Well, now you can. Inspired Choices Network now has its very own mobile app. Our free app offers live streaming shows, along with thousands of podcasts and TV episodes. Our shows cover a wide variety of topics. Whether you're waking up with us, carrying us through the day, and taking us to bed with you, we're always here for you to enjoy. We're easy to find. Just search for Inspired Choices Network in the Apple App Store or Google Play Store. You're listening to Bill Myers Inspires here on the Inspired Choices Network. We're here every Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you for joining us. And now, let's get back to the conversation. We're back. You're listening to Bill Myers Inspires. I'm your host, Bill Myers, and I'm here with my special guest, Mr. James Morris, and we're discussing Blacks in the Military Part 2. What are we defending? And who are we defending? All of that. So you took us to a place that really is to the current space we are in. And so I want to ask you this question, and I really want us to take some time with this. This probably is not a single word answer, but I would be very curious to hear your exploration of this single question. What was January 6th about?
Wow. January 6th was a very awful time in our history. You know, I think what we actually saw was individuals trying to overthrow the government, you know, in my opinion. And this is just my opinion. I think we saw individuals actually in an attempt to actually overthrow the government. It was ugly. It was very ugly. You know, I mean, you had people that died as a result of it, people that were killed as a result of it. To sit there and see individuals storming the wall and occupied the Capitol the way they did, the U.S. Capitol, it was ridiculous. You know, it was a disgrace. I feel that if that was individuals of another race, meaning, and I would say it, the Black race or whatever, that I think you would have had a lot more deaths on hand from those rioters. I hate to say that, but I really feel that that would have been the results. And I think that most people in America would have looked at it and say, hey, they deserve to have been killed, because of what they done. They, tried to take over the Capitol building and take over our government. Yeah.
Wow.
And yeah.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, please.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's basically it. I just, like I say, and I mean, you have a leader that basically encouraged this riot and so forth. And then he make the statement that I'll be there with you, and you're not there, of course. I mean, it's almost like a dictatorship. What are you trying to do? Are you looking to overthrow the government, to get the military on your side because you are the commander in chief and we follow you, we do whatever you tell us to. So now you want us to take over to the government just to keep you in office? It was ugly. It was very, very ugly. And it puts a nasty taste in your mouth, real nasty taste. And even now, when you look at the fact that you got political leaders that are trying to go in and launch an investigation to see actually what occurred. Were there other members, political leaders that were actually involved in this here actions? And they refuse to do that. That's not going to be, nobody wants to hear that, They don't want to do that. So
are you talking about the participation from the Republicans?
Yes,
minority.
Right. That, and then you got, individuals that we elected, and placed in office, and they actually stand by and say, "Oh, it was peaceful." What was peaceful by that when you see a actual policeman being crushed in the middle of a doorway, and when you see individuals losing their lives, and you got, not only that, you got Capitol policemen that have lost their lives, and you got your leader who refused to even comment on that or refused to attend the funeral to give him, giving him proper honor and so forth for the, for him placing himself into harm's way and taking care and defending our Constitution and our government. So it's ugly. That's all I could say. And we got a long way to go. We are divided, we're divided.
Wow. Yeah, it's very difficult to again look at that and again, as they have the January 6th thing, and it was some sort of peaceful tour guide sort of thing. It's like, I don't know, man, that's like absurd. And
right.
and part of what really I find to be disturbing is this whole idea that you've got people basically saying you can't trust what you just saw.
Yeah.
I mean, it used to be, I mean, as far as evidence, video evidence is strong, man. We just go, boom, here you are breaking in the car, man. And, and that's you, that's the car. That's, we have your fingerprints on the, on the tire iron, you know what I mean? We got you. Mm-hmm. But now we're saying, well, what you just saw really wasn't what you just saw. And the insult to the intelligence is overwhelming. And to have people that we've elected to office, many playing on that same you don't know what you're talking about thing, who also, by the way, took a very similar oath as you did in the defending of the Constitution of this nation. There's something very sickening about that sort of bastardization or dishonor in the service, or the disrespect, and then the continued agreement that we're all going to hold this line of ridiculousness, and we're going to tell everybody else, deflect and tell everybody else that. Anyway, that's been my observation. I do find it very interesting, just as you had sort of flipped that script and said, you know, if that was Black people storming that place, oh, I'd take it a step even further. Man, I don't think we would have ever seen a bloodbath greater than that. I mean, it would be stepping over bodies. It would look like Omaha Beach, man. It really would look like some really bad D-Day action. And I mean, so I don't think it would just be marginal. I think it would have been overwhelming. The idea of Black people are climbing the walls and whatnot. Man, there'll be snipers and everything. I mean, there'd be grenades drop. I mean, I don't know about you, but I mean, I just can't even see a comparison that would even remotely be able to be discussed away as some sort of, you know, a field trip for or a tour to the, you know, and I find it interesting, some of the information that's been, well, first of all, I find it interesting that the narrative about election, the big lie, election fraud or what have you, I hear very rarely people bringing attention to the fact that this was projected 5-6 months before the election ever took place. This seed and this narrative was planted that you can't trust, and the only way that I'll lose, it will have to be some deception, you know, some fraudulent thing, you know, and so all of that really occurred long before the actual election, and then all this retabulating stuff. So the seeds were being planted, even though I didn't think they were really taking root. It kept repeating it, but it actually started quite some time before the actual election ever happened. And then they just maintain it. And I guess if you just keep saying the lie, at some point somebody believes you, and then turns into this strange truth. But I don't know, that to me was very disturbing. And I guess we're trying to get to the bottom of it, but we've got one entire half of the government that suggests that they don't want to hear about it. And maybe it's because they will be complicit. Their names will come up on that email list of, you know what I mean? That they were actually a part of this thing or pushing this thing and bear great responsibility for it. I guess my question to you is the idea of sacrifice, and what is our true commitment to serving or service to this country? I'm curious what your response is, and what does that really mean? Just as a little bit or a lot of bit, or?
Well, I think it should be a lot, because I mean, when you take that oath and you step out, you know, into that world, it's a different environment, a totally different environment. You got to take it serious, you know. If you don't take it serious, then, you know, there's consequences even for not taking it serious, you know, meaning that, and I'll go on and say that, you know, some of the benefits and so forth that you, when you join the service, you're entitled to health care, you're entitled to, you know, even after the service, you're entitled to health care, you're entitled to housing, you're entitled to compensation and pension, and you're entitled to, you know, insurance benefits, even burial benefits you're entitled to. So when you step into that arena and you decide that, hey, I don't want to be involved in this, you know, I don't want to do this, or I don't want to go to combat, you know, combat is not an issue for me. There's consequences for that, meaning that the military has its own set of laws, you know, it's called the Uniform Code of Military Justice. And if you don't adhere to those laws, then, you know, you could be confined, you know, you could be booted out of the military with a dishonorable discharge. And those are benefits that, you know, veterans will actually lose for doing that. You're not entitled to any housing. You're not entitled to any health care, any insurance, or any type of pension. So they have to be cautious of that, you know. And so I would say that, you know, those are some of the things that they lose when they decide not to adhere to, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what do you
ask a question?
Yes, partly, but the other half of that question, which we will touch on when we come back from the break, because we're coming up on another break. But no, you didn't. You were not out in the weeds on that. You did facilitate one part of that. But what I want you to think about, and we will address it when we come back from the break, is the other part of that. Because just as you tell me, when the people are in service and take that oath, and then once they leave the service, all of the benefits that sort of follow them through the rest of their lives, even death benefits and so on and so forth, pensions and all these different things. I would argue a congressman or a senator who leaves office, a president who leaves office, has a series of benefits. They're basically covered for the rest of their life too. It don't look like yours. It might be a sweeter package at the end of the day. Now, but my point is that are they, based on their service to this nation, we don't get honorable discharge when somebody's voted out. So I really want you to think about that, because these people still are getting paid to act like fools and perhaps derail a nation and create utter chaos and anarchy. Hold on to that thought. We'll be right back in just a minute.
Today, we are facing some of the greatest challenges of our lives, from our health to political unrest, the environment, financial uncertainty, and the nation's racial divide. Tune in every Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Bill Myers Inspires, as he and his guests take a deep dive into the issues that impact our world with an eye to exploring solutions. Emmy Award-winning actor Bill Myers is an accomplished actor, jazz musician, filmmaker, writer, educator, and speaker. As a biracial man who's both black and white, Bill leverages his background, talent, and voice through creativity, compassion, and connection as activism for social justice to focus on uniting the divide and compelling change. Bill Myers Inspires encourages listeners to look within themselves and take decisive action to make a positive difference. For more information, visit his website, billmyersinspires.com, and sign in for the latest news and updates.
You're listening to Bill Myers Inspires here on the Inspired Choices Network. We're here every Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you for joining us. And now, let's get back to the conversation. We are back. You're listening to Bill Myers Inspires, and today we're talking about Blacks and the military with my guest, Mr. James Morris. What are we defending? This is part two of a conversation that started with my good friend Clifford Ratliff last week, and I just feel like it's much deeper. We had sort of gotten through a layer of that onion, so I wanted to go a little bit deeper with that. So James, I laid a question on you before, or an observation, but I wanted your reflection on that in this last segment. And you had mentioned all the benefits and all the sort of takeaways and how the military, the package once you leave, and honorable service and the consequences of serving honorably. And I was just sort of, you answered part of that, but I was asking about the other folks who take that same oath of office to protect and defend the Constitution, i.e. the lawmakers, the congressmen, the officials, the elected folk, who also get a very sweet package on their way out the door. But I don't think that they necessarily get penalized for honor or dishonor. And literally the consequences of their actions, which they, I guess, still get supported for by this nation, when I think they should be put in prison for the rest of their natural lives, if not firing squad, because I believe that's real treason. That's the real stuff. But that's just me. I don't know what I'm talking about. That's why I'm not in it. But I want to sort of toss that over to you.
Well, I would tell you that the pay, the pensions, and so forth they receive, I don't feel that they're entitled to it. I really don't, especially when you're talking about a lifetime pension for a short period of service, and so forth. I don't think they deserve it, but who am I? Uh, One thing that they tell us in the military is that you stay out of the political arena. You don't worry about that. You don't comment on that. You don't get involved in that type of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I would simply say, I go out on the line and say that I don't feel that they deserve it. I don't feel that it's worth it. Simply because of the shortest period of time served, and you can have a veteran that served 18 years or 15 years or whatever, and get out and not be entitled to, retirement benefits and so forth. And you can have a senator who served much less than that, and they're getting paid for life. It's just it's an unfair system. It's not balanced. I see no balance there.
It's an unfair system.
Yes.
That says volumes. And it's that type of imbalance. The haves, have nots, this doesn't apply to you. We got different set of rules. We got different set of things. If you're white and you go storm the Capitol, you can get away with 4, 5, 8 months of prison time. You might be looking at, if you're black and storm that Capitol, there's a casket right around that corner. I mean, this is serious business. And I just, again, my observations, as I've, again, had the benefit of having really wonderful conversations over the last year dealing and diving into racism in America and so on. But this one really struck me because this is people that are serving and putting their lives on the line for this country. So I think it's very important. And I certainly don't want to jeopardize your status and have you, I don't want you to say anything that I want you to say.
Right.
And it was never prompted that way. In fact,
Right.
This topic came about because Clifford made a statement and then called me and said, what do you think about that?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, what I think is that if you served in the military and that's how you feel, then you have the right to say that. That's what I think. And I think that it's a strong statement, and I think it's something that should be shared with others. Because if you think that, there's probably some other folk who think something very similar to what you are thinking, or feel deceived by this nation that they put their lives on the line for, and said they're going, well, I would have never guessed that this would be what we're looking at. So when you reached out, again, I just wanted to make sure that, again, where there's one that feels that way, and then there's another that feels that way. Some of the observations you made were considerably different because of your service as 22 years in, and then also your advocacy and experience with the VA and the aftermath of that, which again, that particularly interested me because a lot of times, again, we get past the soundbite and the beautiful shiny objects and swords and gloves and whatnot, and then we get down and then somebody's out of there, and then you're going, man, why is he struggling? Why he ain't been right since he came back? And the lack of concern, and it's like, wow, how do we throw people away like that? Those are observations, again, from within my family. And then when I see a lot of the stories and homeless folk and watch the movie Born on the 4th of July, man, I mean, I've seen enough. I didn't have to be in it to know that these conditions exist, because they're human conditions. They're not military. Military's human condition. There's not any, not separated. There's political. It's a human condition. So all these things are relative. So and relevant. So again, I just want to thank you for coming on and sharing your thoughts and being candid and it just means a lot. And again, I can't thank you enough for your service.
Thank you.
I salute you.
Thank you.
And I'm very appreciative of your service to the country, and appreciative of your patronage at the jazz club, because I know I love to see you and your wife in there when we're doing the thing. So
yes,
thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So you've been listening to Bill Myers Inspires, and we've been talking about Blacks in the Military, Part 2. We'll be back here next week, and I wish you all a wonderful weekend. And Be safe out there, and we'll see you later.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for spending your afternoon right here with us at Bill Myers Inspires. Remember, we're here every Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Inspired Choices Network. Remember to take time this week to take a breath and look within yourself and figure out how you can make a positive difference in this world. Spread the word, and we'll see you here next Friday. Have a wonderful week.